This is a pretty common sentiment right now in the online travel slash digital nomad space, that travel influencers and content creators are one of the primary drivers of why costs in cities like Da Nang have been escalating. But is that actually true? Are people like me actually the primary reason costs are increasing across Vietnam, particularly in cities like Da Nang or Ho Chi Minh? Well, I don't think reality is quite that simple. And in this video, I want to look at what I believe is actually driving costs across the entirety of Vietnam, not just Da Nang. And I think the answer to that has a lot less to do with travel influencers of any kind than what people might assume. But first, if you like this type of content that dives into the economics and reality of the modern digital nomad lifestyle, instead of just another reel about cheap coconut coffee, go ahead and subscribe. It helps me out so much. Alright guys, let's go ahead and dive right in here to see what people think about the influencer influence, especially here in Da Nang, and if truly they are to blame for everything. So let's have a look here at this thread. This person spent 3 months every winter in Da Nang starting in 2019, where they could get a pretty beachfront room for the price of a sandwich back in London. Fast forward to 2025 and I feel like I'm paying resort rates to sit at the exact same place. So certainly costs have gone up for them. And who is it that they are blaming? It's the army of YouTubers and TikTok backpackers telling the entire world that Da Nang is the cheapest city on earth and the ultimate digital nomad paradise. The hidden gem nobody knows about. Well guys, now we are solidly mid 2026 and I can say for sure that Da Nang is certainly no longer any sort of hidden gem and is now named in the same breath as places like Chiang Mai. The time of Da Nang being hidden has well passed. And here we have a comment that mirrors my own sentiment. In my last video, I expressed the same idea that if a place is really that great, there is no reasonable expectation that it will stay a hidden gem forever. If a place is great, people will find out about it, as what has happened here in Da Nang. And here we have yet another thread where the primary comment is too many travel influencers talking about how great it is. And if they see one more Miami of Vietnam slash Southeast Asia reel, I'm going to assume that they will explode. Well, I've certainly seen many of those reels as well. And the thing is, guys, I don't think it's the most apt comparison, but it is certainly a comparison that their audience would understand. Assumedly, their audience is primarily American, and they will be familiar with what Miami represents. Another comment about broke-ass content creators, a bit like myself, convincing people of fake expectations that they can live on $1,000 a month. Again, guys, the thing is, I am quite literally here in Vietnam right now in Da Nang, and I am living for just about $1,000 a month. Well, to be honest, it is a bit closer to 1.1, 1.2K, depending on how fancy I want to eat, but 1K is certainly possible here right now. And in fact, that's a bit of a universal experience because my previous destination was Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in which I managed to stay there for the exact same budget and arguably even a little better because housing is quite a bit cheaper over there. So in my personal opinion, that is not a fake expectation, but my actual personal reality that I have been living for the past several months. And yet we have here a final thread talking about influencers. Please stop making YouTube videos and TikToks talking about how cheap it is to rent an apartment here in Da Nang. Now, from my personal experience and in my last video, if you want to see the actual journey, it is not easy at all to rent in Da Nang. Like I mentioned, the prices here are actually quite a bit higher than it was even in KL, where I'm paying probably up to 20 to 25% less for a very nice condo apartment with full amenities such as pool and gym. And here you have absolutely none of that. But certainly here, the area is smaller and competition is far fiercer, which is why prices have been rising so exponentially. They ruin everywhere, stupid influencers. These people are so short-sighted, they'll make $20 off their own original videos and the rent will go up $200 a month. Da Nang is nice though, so of course these people will ruin it. Now here's the thing about that comment. I believe that comment actually does have some truth to it because housing here is extremely just hyper competitive because everyone wants to live in the exact same area. And if an influencer puts out a video on a particularly nice apartment, I would be more than willing to bet that that particular apartment is going to inflate in value and probably close to double near instantly because of the increased demand. So yes, when it comes to finding housing in Da Nang, I would agree this is the negative impact that we see from influencers making that sort of content. And here we finally have a good counterpoint that I would agree with, because I find it that just blaming people making online videos for raising the prices universally without any nuance is pretty short-sighted. Because yes, inflation, printing, okay, I don't know about printing money, supply chain issues, COVID, war in Ukraine, with the amount of Russians and Ukrainians currently here in Da Nang, that is certainly a significant factor in the past years. And you think influencers raise the prices? Well guys, it's time to actually dive into the reality of the situation and look a bit broader than just what the algorithm actually feeds us. Alright guys, and with that comment, I think it's time for some deeper analysis on what exactly is the cause of rising costs here in Vietnam, not just Da Nang, but Vietnam in its entirety. Here's the thing though, of course influencers are going to be in the forefront of your mind when it comes to finding people to blame for this phenomenon, because the algorithms are actively pushing them. I'm sure you're just as tired of another linen shirt wearing hustle bro telling you that Vietnam is the move right now, or another Pilates girl doing a slow pan over her breakfast smoothie bowl. That is the content that the algorithm is feeding you right now, so of course that's what you think to blame. And look, I'm not saying that they have zero effect. If you're explicitly trying to land a very popular apartment in the An Thong neighborhood, yes, those influencers are absolutely driving up prices for that particular apartment and neighborhood. That is absolutely going to drive up competition with the other people who saw that exact same video as you. That part is real, but it's also really small, a very local effect. It's the difference between one particular street getting far more expensive and the entire national economy getting more expensive. And those two things are not the same story, even though they might be happening at the very same time. Because when you move out to the entire country level, you realize that none of those people are moving the needle even a single percent. One of the primary indicators of Vietnam's international growth is the fact that the FTSE Russell Index has recently upgraded the status of Vietnam to an emerging market, which means it's currently being elevated from what was considered a frontier market to now an higher level and far more established emerging market. And an emerging market means that the Vietnamese economy would then be classified on the same level as both China and India. And what that means is that large institutional investment companies will now be required to hold a certain percentage of Vietnamese equities. And that means a whole lot of money flowing into Vietnam very soon. And as we can see in here, that just the inclusion of Vietnam in the emerging markets index means that a total of 1.5 billion has passively flowed into the Vietnamese stock market already. And that means big institutional investment money is finally flowing into Vietnam. And that means the next couple of years, it's going to be extremely exciting, because we're going to be seeing some rapid development of the country. The reason why all of this is even happening is that Vietnam has been the highest single performing stock market in Southeast Asia, reaching a credible growth rate of 33%, with the Vietnamese stock market growing by just 8% in the latest quarter. And here we have even more significant evidence on the rise of Vietnam as a whole, because it turns out Apple's most important manufacturing hub outside of China in recent years has in fact been Vietnam. And we could probably expect further hundreds of billions of worth of infrastructure investment in these factories in the coming years as well. And yet another key point in industry on why Vietnam is rising is that they're actually considered one of the so-called EV tigers of Asia, because they are one of just 2 brands that are managing to displace the long-running Japanese brands like Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi. And you want to know who the other brand is? It's BYD. And in fact, both BYD and VinFast represent the 2 fastest growing car companies throughout the entirety of Southeast Asia. In fact, sales were up 90 to 95% year on year. And VinFast specifically absolutely dominates at home and represents a 37% market share. And I can personally confirm that, because pretty much half of the cars that you see just walking down the street here in Da Nang are going to be VinFast cars. And if VinFast is managing to trade blows like an industry giant like BYD, I think that bodes pretty well. In 2025, Vietnam's economy grew by roughly 8%, the fastest pace in over a decade, and it's continued into this year as well. North of 8% for this quarter as well, and GDP keeps climbing. And close to 70% of the entire country's population is within working age. That's the highest percentage in over 20 years. The country is currently in its most productive stretch in modern history. And absolutely none of this has to do with the Pilates girlie who's telling you about her $2 matcha latte on TikTok. This whole entire idea isn't even new, by the way. Common historical sentiment often attributed to Lee Kuan Yew was that Vietnam was basically a hidden so-called Asian tiger, meaning that he expected that the country would have the same raw potential as Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taiwan, just that it was set back by decades of war that it didn't ask for. And all that we are seeing right now is simply the clock catching up, just decades late. So yeah, absolutely, prices in Da Nang are going up. Rent is up, coffee is up, your favorite banh mi store probably as well. But that has nothing to do with your local hustle bro life coach telling you to buy his courses. And it has similarly absolutely nothing to do with yet another Pilates girl day in my life vlog. It's because Vietnam is finally arriving to the world stage, just decades delayed. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing, it does help me out so much. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care.